Hey yo, kia ora team, I'm Benny. Welcome to another episode of Grow with Bennies. Today we're talking about propagation. Now this is basically the process of making plants from plants, and it's one of my favourite things to do in the garden, with my clothes on. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of different methods of propagating and looking at certain methods that are right for certain types of plants. We're going to be taking a closer look at one in particular, softwood cuttings, because we're going to be taking cuttings from this week's plant of the week, which was blueberry. Now stay tuned after the show, because as always my good mate Adam Mensch will bring us regrowth. And not only this week does he have his own opening credits and theme song, but he's going to be answering some viewer questions. So stay tuned for that. Now I've got my good mate, my very brave mate Blue here, and this episode marks the midway point of this season of Grow with Bennies. So in the words of Bon Jovi, we're halfway there. So let's get after it and learn about propagation on this week's episode of Grow with Bennies.
Save your pennies, grow with Bennies.
Now, there's lots of reasons why I love propagating plants. Often they might have a certain uniqueness or a special sentimental value. Take this aloe vera, for example. This was grown from a cutting I took from this mother plant, which was grown from a cutting I took from my auntie's aloe vera plant, and she grew that from a cutting she took from my grandfather's aloe vera plant. So this bad boy's been in our family for generations. And this is easy enough to propagate by what we call division. Now, the plant will actually easily propagate by just pulling it apart at the base. You can just pop that in there. Now another good plant that grows great by division is something like a fern. Instead of producing seeds, they produce spores, which are really tricky to germinate. So you can basically divide it at the root by just cutting it in half. Now, another reason that I love propagation is that, look, some might say I'm cheap. I'd like to say I'm, well, cheap, I guess. So what? Everybody loves a bargain and a freebie and saving money. And a great way to do that is by propagating plants by saving and sowing your own seeds. Now, I've sown loads of seeds here on Grow with Bennies, and we'll do loads more. I'll go into more detail, but a good example is when I grow something like broccoli or cauliflower, which grow best by planting seeds. Now, I'll tend to grow 6 broccoli, and I'll harvest and eat and try and convince my kids to eat 5 of them. The 6th one, I'll leave it to go to seed, and I'll save those seeds to propagate further down the track. So it's a good way of saving money, and also when your kids don't eat the broccoli, it doesn't feel like you've wasted any money. Now, there are other more technical forms of propagation, cloning, grafting. A lot of times plants will just try and propagate themselves by putting out runners or by the use of rhizomes. But today, we're going to be looking at one method called taking softwood cuttings from this week's plant of the week, blueberry. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a cutting from the slightly bendy part of the stem. And we're going to get that ready for propagating shortly. We've got some rooting hormone. We've got these bad boys good to go. So let's get after it and propagate some blueberries. So we're going to take the cutting that we've just taken off our blueberry plant, and we're going to cut it just below a leaf node at a 45-degree angle. We're going to take off some of the lower leaves.
Propagation.
We're going to cut this bad boy in half. Again, lower leaf node at a 45.
Whoa. Propagation.
And we're going to trim off some of the lower leaves.
Give it a go. Whoa.
We're going to take our little cuttings, we're going to soak the bottoms in water.
At least I know how to
For a couple
grow.
of minutes. Then we're going to take them and we're going to dip them in our rooting hormone, which we've poured out. Never use the rooting hormone direct in the packet. And we're going to set these down for just a moment or so, just so that rooting hormone can really soak in there. Then we're going to jam them into our fine pumice, and we're going to use the Bennies mister to give them a fine mist. So folks, that's just an introduction to propagation and to a couple of different methods that you can use to propagate your plants. I'm Benny Ward. Subscribe if you're on board. The best way to continue to grow is to leave a like or a comment down below. I'll catch you next time on Grow with Bennies. And now it's time for regrowth with Adam Mensch.